because they depend upon the recordings, and that helps. But what can get in the way? Um, Complacency, because I did well on the first two tests, I should do well in the next. Not necessarily true. Uh, Also, you may be taking more than one class. If you're taking two or even three classes at the same time, they're all going to come due for final exam at the same time. And you know that can really be a hassle. So my suggestion is keep up with the material so that you don't have to cram our class anyway at the last minute, and have it in there in a bunch with any other classes that you might have. And what else could bring a grade down? Well, the question was asked by two people, okay, Jade and Sia, and I'm going to answer it now as to the study outline. There was an outline due for chapter 15, but you may not have known it from the regular way. Okay, first off, we had a test, and I don't expect that anybody's going to work an outline when they should be studying for the test. I figured, maybe wrong, that the outline would get done after the test in the 4 days before the next class. And I sent out an email to that effect, but I did it late on Sunday. Uh, you know, do I really care that the outline is done at 11:59 on Monday night? Hell no. I care that the outline is done, that you read the chapter, that you tried to understand the chapter, even to the extent of asking me questions about it before you turn it in or even after you've turned it in. But not turning it in would mean you're not going to get the extra credit available to you on P3. Not turning in any one of the outlines that we have had since P2 means you won't get to have extra credit on P3. And maybe that doesn't bother you because you don't need extra credit to score an A or any other grade. But I would imagine if it were me, I would want every point I could get. I would also want to read the material because it helps me to understand what he said in lecture. His lecture is not as hard as the material in the book. And if I can sort of comprehend the material in the book and compare it to the lecture, I think I'll get a good idea of where he's going with the test, especially when he gives us practice tests that are of the same type. Now, what will happen is if somebody doesn't get busy and get chapter 15 done, you're first off not alone. There are 16 of you who haven't turned it in yet. That's more than half the class. Uh, do I care? Not if you do get it in, not at all. But if you don't do chapter 15, I'm going to assign chapter 16 in a few minutes. And now you'll have two to do. Okay, and you don't need that. And you don't certainly need three to do and rush them right before P3 trying to get that extra credit, especially since reading these chapters late means you probably will read them after the test has gone by. So what good did it do you? Nothing at all. It was just busy work. Do I like reading? uh, Actually, this wouldn't bother me, uh, but it would bother other people who like different types of reading. A lot of people read novels and short stories. I see people reading everywhere, whether whether it's on a device or just out of a hard copy textbook. Okay, people seem to like to read. I could never develop that uh, attachment to reading. I hate reading. I hate reading anything except instruction manuals.
What?
I love to read instruction manuals, and I uh, also read the internet uh, quickly because I don't have to do anything much more with that. But I love instruction manuals. Okay. I do not like novels. I know I don't, but I've never read one. I have never read a novel in my life. When it came time to do an oral book report at school, I went and got the Cliff Notes, got a quick summary of it, did a lousy job, got a lousy grade, but I never read the novel. I hate, absolutely hate novels. Okay. I didn't even like reading comic books as a kid. When I was in, pardon the story here, but we got a couple of minutes. I always wait, not this long usually. And we almost got her 25. When I was in second grade, actually, in Buena Park, Centralia School, the school had only first, second, and third graders. That's it. The best first, second, and third grade boy and girl got a special prize at the end of the year. They never announced what the prize was going to be. I wanted that prize. I wanted it bad. I wanted to be the best boy. But I was in the second grade and we moved there late, and everybody else had half a semester's head start. There was no way I was going to get it. So I was going to prepare myself for the third grade, and I was going to get that prize. I don't know who the girl would have been, and the second graders and the two first graders, but there'd be six of us, and I'd be right there. Well, I was going to have a problem because in second grade it showed up that I was the worst reader in the class. They gave out books by color, the same story with different vocabulary, and I had the yellow book, which meant I was a moron. And all the rest of the class would look at me and see that I had the yellow book. It was like wearing a dunce cap. If you got better, you got to go up a color, but I never went up a color. I was a yellow book all the way through second grade. So how am I going to win in third grade? I did. I won the third grade competition by sitting in the front row, front seat, folded my hands, combed my hair. I wore a tie to class in third grade every day. And when it came to reading, I was perfection. And that's only because we got to take our book home over the weekend, usually, and we were told what the chapter was going to be next week. So instead of planning on reading the chapter, I did what I'm better at, and many of you are too, is finding that out in the class. I memorized the words. I memorized every single word, usually over 10 pages. And when the teacher called on me, it was the same teacher I had in second grade. She was flabbergasted. She could not believe the improvement. I was letter perfect. So she pulled a fast one on me. She asked me to read more than the normal. And it didn't matter. I'm doing it from memory. I'm looking at the book and I'm just spouting out everything from memory. So I think this is a good class for me to teach. But I, along with the other five students, we won the Students of the Year. What do you think we got for a prize in Buena Park in 1950? Oh, I don't even know what year it was. Okay, 1950 something. Any idea what they'd give us?
A bookmark.
That would have been great. Yeah. No, they took us out to the loading area where the school buses come in, and we had a teacher chaperone with us, the six kids, and we waited for the school bus. And here it came, and we were so happy. It was Mr. McCoy driving the school bus. He was the good school bus driver. Mrs. Shelley beat the kids, slapped them in the face, kicked them physically out the door of her bus. They can't get away with that these days. But those days, that's the way it was, you know. And I got slapped lots of times from that. I won't use the word. Okay. Well, Mr. McCoy and the chaperone drove us, and we didn't know where we were going. We ended up at Valley View. That's a street, Valley View, and the 101 freeway, which is now the I-5. I don't know if you know that area, uh, but there was a fertilizer company, Bandini, there, and there are lots of dairies. The city of La Mirada used to be called Dairyland, and there were so many steers and steer manure, so much of it, that they mounded it up. They ended up selling it, of course, but they had a mountain, and we got out of the bus and we look up at this Mount Bandini, it was called. Mount Bandini had a road going up, tractor going up it, guy with an umbrella up there, but they called everybody down for lunch. And during the lunch half hour, we 6 kids got our prize. We were allowed to climb Mount Bandini, the mountain of bullshit, and get all the way to the top and roll down as many times as we could in half an hour. That was our prize.
No, what?
That's what we got. But you know, when we got back to school, as dirty as we were, as dirty and filthy and crappy as we were heroes. We were heroes in those days.
I mean, it's better than a bookmark.
I think so.
Charlie,
Okay.
do you by chance know what reading counts is?
Say that again.
Do you know what reading counts is? It's a basically like a reading program, like what you did, but it's a reading program. When I went to elementary school, and I'm pretty sure a lot of us can relate. But like, it's like a point system for like reading books. You know, so you take a test, a 10 question test, and if you get a 7 out of 10, then you get the points of how much that book is worth. So if it's like a big book, say like Harry Potter or something, it's like 27 points, and if it's like a small book, you know, like a short stories, and it's like 3 pages. And the reason why I said bookmark is because if you got like 10, 15 points, like it goes by bookmark. And I think like the more points you get, like I think that like for me at least, when I in like first grade, when I got like 20 points, which was like pretty good for like the start of the year, I would get like Pizza Hut certificates.
Wow.
You get like your own pizza pan. But like the more I grew, like the more I I sucked at reading. And so like everyone got like these like erasers and stuff, and I still had like 5 points in my system, even though I was like in the 7th grade.
Oh, you know, you mentioned things like Harry Potter, and it just makes me want to get sick. I can't believe anybody would spend their time reading this stuff, any stuff. I mean, I go through one paragraph and I forgot the last paragraph. I can go one page and I can be asleep. It's just me. I got through my entire life without reading a novel, and I think I did pretty well. Okay, I need to get some starting material here. First off, I'm going to give you the chapter for next week. Okay, it's going to be chapter 16, uh, and it's the special senses. It's not a tough one. And if you want to mark it and follow along in your book with me, I'll keep the screen as it is for the time being. And I better turn the light on. I can't even see it here. Okay, special senses is chapter 16, and for me, it starts on page 488. If you find it on a different page, shout out what page and version you've got.
You said 488.
Okay. If you don't have your book with you at all, then you should take some pencil notes. Okay. It starts with the chemical senses of taste and smell. You'll find that. Okay. Please read that. Continue reading that page. That's the second page. The next page, taste, sensations, and the gustatory pathway, yes. Smell or olfaction, yes. And then you come across to embryonic development of the chemical senses. No, no, I don't care about embryonic development. I care about adult or soon to be adult human beings. Disorders of the chemical senses. No, they can be really annoying though when you lose your smell. Uh, that can be quite annoying. But you do not need to read those two parts. Okay, and then it goes to eye and vision. Okay, accessory structures of the eye. Yes. Eyelids, eyebrows. Yes. Conjunctiva. Yes. Lacrimal or tearing apparatus. Yes. The extrinsic eye muscles. No. We've already gone over the eye muscles. Okay, so don't bother outlining that, please. Then I come across a clinical application, which I will either read out of because I'm interested or skip because I don't like to read. Anatomy of the eyeball. Okay. Yes, this goes along with P3. The fibrous layer. Yes. Skip the clinical application. The vascular layer. Yes. And the inner layer. Yes. All of this we have touched upon already with the eyeball, and we have time, fortunately, to review everything. Okay. I'm turning a page. I don't have a new title. I come to clinical application, and then I come to blood supply of the retina. See if you can find blood supply of the retina.
Skip
No.
the clinical application from the at the top where it says
Yeah.
specify.
Well, my clinical applications are at the bottom. I've got edition 7 out.
Wait, Charlie, what was the name of the clinical application you're talking about? Is it age-related macular?
No, I didn't mention that yet. I don't see it. I was mentioning blood supply of the retina.
Yeah, it's right on top of it. It's right on top of the section.
Oh, yeah. I see what you're talking about. That's a clinical application. No, that's not testable material. That's not something that you need to outline. But often it includes the most interesting parts of the chapter. Okay, you've heard about age related macular degeneration. I know you have somebody in your family, somebody older, usually, and reading a paragraph could do wonders for you, but you don't need to outline that. The blood supply of the retina, yes. Another clinical application, detached retina. I've read a lot about detached retinas myself in the past, so I would skip this personally. You can read it or not. You do not need to outline the clinical application. Internal chambers and fluids, yes. The lens, yes. And at that point, I'll call it where you see the eye as an optical device. Put a stop above that, and the amount that you need to outline is before that. There may be some material beyond that that you'll be responsible for, but that's either already been given to you, or if it hasn't, it will be given to you without doing further reading. Okay. You will not be tested on anything you haven't been shown or had talked about. Okay, that is due next week on Monday. Now, when I say due, what do I really mean? That's the suggested due date to keep on track. Okay. Will I take it later? Yes. How much later? Right up until before P3. After P3, throw it in the shred it. Okay. Let's go to our material. Okay, I've collapsed weeks 1 through 7 because there's nothing in there that you need to know for upcoming tests until we get to the final. Then I'll open up everything again. You can open these up yourself if you feel there's something in there that you need. But way back at week 8, and we're in week 12 already. Goes fast. Back in week 8, the integumentary system now will be a part of the next lecture test. So we're looking at L3. The circulatory system, a portion of it will be there. This shows the white blood cells, for instance. That'll be in L3. There's a recording for that date. The heart lecture, this was the one, if you recall, that was a PowerPoint. And here's the recording of that PowerPoint. Condensed muscle list, no more. I've indented it to the left now. These, no. Here's the P3 checklist that somebody asked. Our next exam will be P3. Okay. When I back up, I'll be able to show you the exact date. And it includes parts of the brain, functions of the brain, the eye, the ear, heart, vessel identification of the human and the cat, fetal circulation, white blood cells, artery vein cross sections under the microscope. We didn't use a microscope, of course, but we had micrographs, and the cranial nerves. Seems like a lot of material, but we've already covered most of this, not all of it. And I'm going to recover some of it today. The heart. Okay, here's a list of the structures of the heart that you may be asked to identify. The brain. Here's the list of the structures of the brain that you'd be asked to identify. The eye. Here are the structures going down to here, and then the ear. Okay. These are all available from the website. Here's the website from Unit 3. This will be very useful to you. Okay. Sometimes I find it annoying getting into Canvas and then getting flipped out because I hit the wrong button or something. But the website that I gave you before, please don't ignore it. Okay. It's got lots of material, including 4 review PowerPoints. I've selected the parts of the PowerPoints that I think are the most relevant to you, and I'll be showing them to you today.
Can you find that on Canvas? Like, is there a link there, or do you give it? Is it like in the syllabus?
I gave it to you in the syllabus.
Okay.
Okay. I gave it to you in the syllabus and possibly some other places. If you'd like a link in week 12, I'll just put it there. Okay. It makes sense. not hard. Okay, coming down. Here's the checklist. List of heart structures. Wonder what the difference is here. Let me take a look. Okay, there's no difference here except that it's limited to the heart only. Okay. Then the heart models and specimens, very important one for us to be reviewing. Indented, indented, indented. Okay, not indented, not of interest anymore. Discussion for week 9, assignment for week 9 made. Fetal circulation, the ear, brain, and the eye, and the recording for these 2 labs and lectures. P2, we took it some time ago. That was the muscle practicum. I gave you a practice heart quiz. Once you've taken a quiz, you look over here. Where'd it go? Here it is. That's strange. I guess that's the way it is. Usually it does not allow me to remove anything once you have worked on it. Okay. Doesn't hurt to leave it. Practice heart quiz, you can take it again. You should take any practice quiz that I give you as often as necessary to get all of them correct, whether it's a 10 or a 20 question quiz. You want to get them all. Okay. So keep taking it. Week 10, we started with the nervous tissue and started with the autonomic nervous system, and we did a recording for both of these. I did a recording on 1027. And our lecture test, there's not, you wonder what the recording is for? I am. It's because we reviewed only on 1027. So all the review is on the recording. That probably can be pushed over to the side as well, since we're finished with that. And then our lecture test 2 was on the 29th. Here's the spinal nerves, vessels above and below the diaphragm. I moved them down from where they originally were, because we'll be doing those. Okay, and not yet opened or the rest of these. Our practicum 3 is November 12th. Okay, so if today is the 3rd, it's going to be a week and 2 days from now. Okay, so there's a lot of material. Lab material wise, hang on. Okay, there won't be any additional lab material. So whoever asked me that question a moment ago, that's the answer. Okay, this is it, right in here. This is lecture, and this will go on to L3. But this is lab, and labs will go on to P3. It's coming right up. Okay, so we do have time this week and one day next week for review. Okay, we talked about the nervous system. We talked about the autonomic nervous system, mostly in words rather than any images. So here's the last portion, the spinal nerves and the autonomic nervous system. Okay, and 11.3 is our date here. This tends to be the toughest lecture. That's why I was hoping you would have your chapter read. But if I need to go through it twice, I always go through it twice. So don't worry that you won't get another chance after you have read chapter 15 if you haven't already. Okay. Okay. I'm thinking to myself, that's why when I get quiet, that's what's going on. I'm thinking you as a group, okay, and me as the person trying to prepare you may not be ready for the P3 on the 12th. I think I'm thinking of moving it to the following Tuesday. That'll give you the weekend to study. Okay, no new material, but the weekend to study and plenty of time for us to do the last sections. If you're all scheduled to be here, okay, and the 12th is seemingly a good day, but we do it the 17th, we got one less day to do the remainder. We're just going to have to hit it hard. Send me your thoughts, okay? But I'm going to be deciding, and I'm going to do it so that I can get the best possible score out of you. I think that's what everybody should want. Okay. Think about it anyway after this lecture.
Well, I'm sorry. What did you say? Like, what did you want to be moved?
I'm considering moving P3, okay, which is on the 12th. That's a week and 2 days from now. Okay. It has probably the most material. Okay. I'm considering moving it to the following Tuesday. And that's the 17th.
Okay, for sure. I was a little confused, but thanks. Thank you.
Okay. Well, why won't that come down? Can you see each other's names?
You're still sharing your screen, if that's what you mean.
Yeah, I know. I know I'm showing my screen. I'm also looking at the same time at the people in the class. Are you seeing that? By that, I mean names on a blackboard.
No.
You're not seeing that. Okay, that's good. I didn't want you to see that because otherwise some people may not want to give their feelings. Okay. So since I brought up the subject of moving the practicum P3 to 2 weeks from today instead of a week and 2 days from today. In other words, you have a weekend to study. Show of hands, if you would like that. Show of hands if you don't want that. Is there only one person alive? Two.
I'm sorry, actually, my internet just kind of broke up. What was that question?
Okay, put your hands down because I don't know what you're voting for right now. the question is, we're going to have practical exam 3. I just went over the material that's going to be included in it. It's quite a bit. Okay. I'm not sure myself personally that you'll be prepared on the, as prepared on the day that it's assigned. That's a week and 2 days from today. That's on the 12th. So I wanted to move it to the 17th, possibly, giving you the weekend to study. That doesn't mean that we're just going to have an extra study day on the 12th. I'll go ahead with the material that comes after P3 if I want to, okay? But you will have the weekend to study for P3. If not, we leave it as it is, okay? And I don't know why it would inconvenience anybody either way as far as time slot. Can you be here? You're supposed to be here. And so I'm not worried about that. So we're either going to leave it where it is in 12, 7, 8, 9 days, or go to the 17th in 2 weeks. Think about it. Okay, whose preference is it to leave it as it is?
Yeah, I'm cool with that.
I'd rather do it on the 17th, to be honest. It seems like a lot of stuff.
Well, don't vote yet. I've got 2 votes so far. So, okay, how many would prefer it on the 17th?
Do you mean 19th?
I probably do. No, I do not. I meant moving it from the Thursday, the 12th, to Tuesday, the 17th. Okay.
Yes.
I'm not sure everybody knows what the little hand is.
Oh yeah, I didn't know how to do it, so I thought we were just gonna talk.
No. You want to move it?
I say let's move it.
Yeah, let's just move it. No one's saying it.
There's a couple that don't want to move it, and if I can trust them, I'll give it to them early. But there's no crying. No crying if you decide you made a bad choice. I'm going to move it. I'm going to move it for the class to the 17th. And if somebody still wants to take it on the original date, okay, hang on, be sure I got it, on the 12th, email me, okay? You don't really have to justify it. That was the day in the syllabus, so you're entitled to it if you want it. And if you want to take it early, obviously you have to cut off any contact with the other students until after they've taken it. And it may be slightly different, but of equal challenge. Okay, I'll put out an email to you, okay?
Okay.
Okay,
Like the court has come to a decision and this meeting is adjourned.
yeah. The decision was made based upon getting the highest grades out of you. I don't need high grades out of you. You've, as a group, are doing quite well. I should let you just hash it out, and but that's just not my way. I want you to learn the material. I want you to be able to express about the material and show that you know it on a test. Okay, and that's how I know that you got something. Okay, now you recognize this as part of the spinal column. This part up here, this is the base of the skull, the occipital bone. Here's the atlas, and the axis is underneath, barely showing that dens right there. And here's the thoracic vertebra, and here are the 5 lumbar vertebrae. I only see 4 in the picture. And here's the sacrum down here, and the coccygeal does not show. Okay. Well, In order to communicate between the outer body and the central nervous system, between the peripheral nervous system and the central nervous system, there's got to be a connection. We have to have a connection from our arms, legs, skin, everything, reach the central nervous system. If a stimulus does not reach the central nervous system successfully, there'll be no reaction. There'll be no reaction whatsoever. So yes, if you're paralyzed because the spinal cord broke at a certain level, you will not be able to feel anything below the point where the break was made. But we have to have connection. And the connection are these guys in yellow that are coming out from between the vertebrae. These are the spinal nerves. Okay. The total number of spinal nerves is 31 pairs. So it's actually 62, but there are 31 pairs of spinal nerves. Okay. Incoming information, take my cursor here, like pain from the skin comes in to the spinal nerve and reaches the central nervous system, which can then go to the brain or lower and then out again, either at the same level or sometimes at lower levels. Okay. But again, through the spinal nerves. The spinal nerves, are they short or long? What do they look like?
Sure.
Yeah, they're short. They're considered short. And they're all in the peripheral nervous system. They will meet with the central nervous system, but they are in the peripheral nervous system. Impulses can come in, sensory impulses, and motor commands can go out the same spinal nerve. That means spinal nerves are mixed nerves. All of them are mixed nerves. So that allows two-way movement of sensory stimuli and motor commands. How do we get 31 pairs? Well, how many vertebrae do we have? We have 7 cervical vertebrae, 12 for the thoracic. That makes 19. Then we have 5 for the lumbar, making 24. And although in the past we've counted the sacrum as one bone, it has exits for 5 spinal nerves. Okay. And 1 for the coccygeal, which is not showing here. Did that add up correctly? 7, 12 makes 19, and these 10, 29, and the coccygeal, 30. There's supposed to be 31 spinal nerves. That's because we have counted all of the spinal nerves originating underneath a vertebra. But the very first vertebra, C1, has 2. It has 1 at the top and 1 below the vertebra itself. So there are 8 spinal pairs, spinal nerve pairs in the cervical region, 8. 12 pairs in the thoracic region, 5 more pairs in the lumbar region, 5 pairs in the sacral region, and 1, again, not showing, in the coccygeal region. That gives us our 31 pairs. There's 31 ways to get in on each side to the CNS, and 31 ways to send a message out. Okay. A message on the way out doesn't have to go out just one spinal nerve. If it does a message from the sympathetic nervous system, That's the one for fight or flight. It can hit those chain ganglia that I mentioned the other day, going to show you in a moment. And it can literally come out and multiply and come out all of the spinal nerves to really prime the body for fight or flight. This is a review picture. You've seen this before, but it needs to show it again right now. Incoming information, a stimulus could come out from here and go in here. This is a spinal nerve. Incoming information is afferent nervous system. The swollen part is the dorsal root ganglion. It contains the cell bodies of pseudo-unipolar neurons. If you don't remember that, that's okay. You've had it once. It'll start to stick as you realize that it's do or die time for the next test. This is the dorsal root ganglion. Here's the dorsal root, the incoming information, and it curves and goes into the dorsal horn of the gray matter. It can then go into the white matter and go up to the brain and down, or it can actually sometimes cross it to the ventral side, the ventral horn, and go out through the ventral root. When it just goes up and across and around, that's a reflex arc. It's still going to reach the brain. The brain's still going to find out about what happened, but the brain has given command to the reflex arc to act on its own. Okay, we talked about reflex arc. You can ask me if you don't remember it. Okay, on the way out, the motor command from the ventral root goes through the spinal nerve. Okay, it's got to leave the central nervous system. The central nervous system can't move. The central nervous system doesn't have skeletal muscle. It can't move. It has a little bit of smooth muscle. Okay, you got to get out of it. And so out it goes through the spinal nerve, which again is a mixed nerve. And notice this little guy here and this little guy here. These are the sympathetic trunk ganglia. When we're talking about the innervation of skeletal muscle, a stimulus like pain comes in, and a motor command like, get your hand off of that cactus, goes out. And that's strictly to the voluntary muscle. If you're talking about the sympathetic nervous system, that would have to go over to here and get into what we call the chain ganglia. 1, 2, 3, 4 levels, 31 levels of these little compartments. We'll see them in just a second. But this has nothing to do with the voluntary nervous system. Okay, this is the area of a typical thoracic vertebra. If you recall, the sympathetic nervous system is also called the thoracolumbar nervous system. And around the vertebra, or the vertebral column of the thoracic and lumbar areas, it looks like this. This structure here is one vertebra extracted from the bone that we saw in the previous picture. We obviously could see the horns, the horn. We can see dorsal root ganglia, dorsal root, ventral root come out. Here's our spinal nerve right here, starts to here. There it is. So most of this is the same drawing. but we don't see the bony portion. We don't see the vertebra at all in here.
Charlie, I have actually a quick question. I read last night on the outline that there is a ganglioil I don't know how to pronounce it. And there's
Ganglionic.
a post, you know, ganglion. And I just wanted to know like where
You're
it
going
is.
to see it. Okay, that's where I'm headed. So hang in there for a moment, okay? Okay, so now if you were just talking about voluntary nervous system, as we were a moment ago, you put your hand on a cactus and you pull it away, almost a reflex arc. I did that when I was a kid. The landlady who lived in front of us had a cactus garden in the backyard. I was 5. I was wearing jeans and a cowboy suit. And I went out there in the morning. My mother tossed me out the door because my father was getting ready to go work and drive the streetcars. Well, they didn't want me around. So I'm out there looking at the plants and I look at this new cactus she's got. Oh God, a million spines on it. And it looks so pretty. It just looks so soft. It wasn't, of course. And so the next day I went out, and this time I knew what I was going to do. I went over to that cactus and I turned around and I sat right down on it. I tried to get up, but I couldn't because the spine stuck to my blue jeans and stayed in me. Finally, the woman's husband, we call him Grandpa Laird, he had to come and pick me up and keep me in a seated position. And then they took me inside and threw me over a couch and started yanking out spines. You'd think I'd learned my lesson, but I'm a very curious person. And once when my parents had gone to the store, I took a carpet tack and put it on a wooden chair and decided I wanted to feel what it felt like to sit on a carpet tack. Oh, it's bad. It's bad. Okay. Let's look at this drawing and prune it down to size. Incoming information in red here can come here, and it can also come this way. These two structures do have names. I'll give them to you in a moment, okay? But it's incoming afferent sensations. And now got to the spinal nerve, but coming in, it goes through the dorsal root ganglion, to the dorsal root, to the gray matter, okay? And starting at the dorsal horn. This gray matter, I added the designation here, lateral intermediate mass. Okay, we'll come back to that. I'm just showing it to you right now. Okay. The impulse can go up to the brain, come back, go out through the ventral horn, ventral root, and then back out, either back out this way or this way. This is the dorsal, towards the dorsal side is up here, ventral side's here. This is the dorsal primary ramus. This is the ventral primary ramus. Now, you will not be asked those terms, okay? If I have put them in the text here, I also put in that you don't have to know them, okay? But for some people, it makes the story more complete. Okay, so what did I do? Voluntary nervous system? Strictly voluntary nervous system is what I did. And if all we had was voluntary nervous system, we wouldn't need any more of this drawing. We wouldn't need these 3 satellites sticking on top of each other, talking about 1, 2, 3. Actually, there are 31 of these. They're each associated with the chain ganglia, and each associated with the 31 pairs of spinal nerves. Okay. Okay. This drawing is primarily to show you the voluntary nervous system. Very simple. Actually, very simple. But we also have the ANS, the autonomic nervous system, and we need to look at what are called sympathetic pathways. The sympathetic pathways are the path that an impulse would take traveling away from the sympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system is entirely efferent, not going to receive a stimulus, okay, to work. Here it is down here. Now, you recognize the same drawing. Same drawing. In the sympathetic autonomic nervous system, in the sympathetic pathways or sympathetic nervous system, it prepares the body for fight or flight. It originates right here at this bulge, which I gave you a name for just a moment ago. It was the lateral intermediate mass. It's getting its information from the tissue it is embedded in, and that is the gray matter, or we can call it the horn. And the information it gets is going to go out to the organs. Okay. This is the sympathetic nervous system pathway. There are two neurons in the pathway. The first one is called the preganglionic neuron. And the second one, after a synapse, is called the postganglionic neuron. You can also think of them as nerves rather than neurons because they don't travel singly. They travel as a bunch. Here's the preganglionic neuron. Now realize that we are in the thoracolumbar region. We said that this is in the thorax, in the thoracic vertebra or the 5 lumbar vertebrae. It looks like this. And here originates the preganglionic neuron. It goes out the way everything goes out, the ventral route. And then it goes where everything else goes, into the spinal nerve, which is hidden in part by this vertical structure. But instead of going out to the body through this structure, or out to the body yet through this structure, it instead passes by one channel to a second. And it goes in to this bulbous structure. Think of a nodule or a bump you've had under your skin or something like that. Okay. This is a chain ganglia. It's also known as a sympathetic trunk ganglion. That could be where the preganglionic neuron ends, right here. And the second neuron might begin. Okay. Hang on to the thought. Come over to here. This also happens. Here's the lateral intermedial mass. Here's the preganglionic neuron of the sympathetic nervous system. It has to be the sympathetic nervous system. Why? This is thoracolumbar. It's the only kind we have. Follows the same trail. But instead of synapsing with the postganglionic neuron in this chain ganglion or sympathetic trunk, it instead takes a dive and goes down to the next one. It could just as easily take a dive or a climb and go up to the above one. It could also split because remember, not just one neuron, it's many. And it could go both ways. It could go down farther. It can go down to your tail, all the way to the 31st of these. There are 31 of these. Okay, but whatever, until it synapses, it is the preganglionic neuron. That's the preganglionic neuron. Okay, here's with the synapse. Preganglionic neuron in red, taking the same path. Coming in to the chain ganglion or the sympathetic trunk ganglion. It's going to synapse somewhere because there's two neurons in the pathway. When it ends in synapses, we'll have it synapse it with this blue one. And that blue one can go right out, okay, right through this channel. And now it can go down through the primary ventral ramus. The term I told you you're not going to be asked to say, but you should have an idea of that. This is an outward passageway. It could also synapse the blue one, the postganglionic neuron, and it could go out this way. Where's it headed? Where's it going? It's going to all the body organs now. Now it's going to the stomach. Now it's going to the intestines. Now it's trying to prime the liver and the spleen for activity, because that's what the sympathetic neuron or sympathetic nervous system does. Okay. Now I've shown it here is going straight around, but I could back up to this one and have it synapse here and go right out this one, and it'll catch. It won't catch this one because that's on a different level. This is one level. This is another level, and another level here. But it will hit the primary ventral ramus and continue out to the organs. In the sympathetic nervous system, the preganglionic neuron is relatively short. The postganglionic neuron in blue looks short, but I haven't drawn it all. It goes all the way now out to the stomach or to the other organ. The neurotransmitter between the pre and postganglionic neurons is acetylcholine in both systems, this and the parasympathetic. Once it gets to the organ itself, the neurotransmitter is acetylcholine or adrenaline. Now, two terms, white ramus and gray ramus.
I have a quick question.
Yes,
You said that the how do you pronounce it? Acetylcholine, right?
acetylcholine,
Acetylcholine,
choline.
choline, makes a synapse between the pre and the post ganglial. I was wondering when, like, does it differ by each organ? Because each synapse, like, or each like, could you say like the pre ganglial like nerve can reach all the way down to the tailbone and up towards the spinal, like, to the
Yes.
coxal. So what makes the acetylcholine, like synapse, or like what makes it like, go to the post ganglial, if that makes sense.
It makes sense that you're a little confused, okay? But that's because there's no way to explain God, okay? There's no real way to explain this. This is something I don't think has ever been studied. We can observe that at the synapse, which is right here, acetylcholine goes across. We can make that observation. As to why it does, who determined that it does. It's not the organs because they have no control. It's always acetylcholine. It's always acetylcholine. I can't answer the question any better than that. You know.
I appreciate your honesty, but thank you.
Okay, well, if you find an answer to exactly what you were looking at, send it to me, please. Okay.
I shall. Thank you.
White Remus, gray Remus. Okay. I haven't labeled them here. I probably should. I can. In fact, I know I'd better because it's a test question later. You see this little
up top.
Huh? I
You
did?
have them labeled up top.
Oh, thank you. Okay. So that helped a lot. Okay, I did put it together. Okay. Now, when we're thinking of the autonomic nervous system, and especially the sympathetic that we were looking at a moment ago, it's not drawn in, but let's just follow the little arrow. In the lateral intermediate mass, the preganglionic neuron will come out. It's headed to an organ to stimulate it, usually. It's going to go through the ventral root and the spinal cord. It's going to skip this gray ramus, it's called. Why do they give these things color names? You know, in the body, you're all sealed up. There's no light. There's no light. You can't see gray. You can't see white. I guess in dissection, obviously. You go through the second one, and that is the one you can enter into. Okay. The white ramus is entered into by the preganglionic neuron. If its synapse is here, the postganglionic neuron goes out through the gray ramus. If its synapse is down here, the postganglionic neuron still goes out through the gray ramus, but at this level down here, a different level of your body. If it goes up here and were to synapse, it would go out through the gray ramus. The white ramus, I think of it when I imagine the other one over here. They're wider, a little wider. Okay, and that's where I get the W. So I always know this is the white one, the one that's wider. It goes in. It only goes in to the chain ganglia. You cannot back out. It only goes in. So I think I use for my mnemonic device or whatever, I say win. White is in. Win. Okay. White goes this way. Gray is always going to go out. So I think of gout, you know, the uric acid crystals some people accumulate. And that would be G out. So win in, gout out. Okay? And then the gout goes, the postganglionic neuron comes out, but doesn't go this way anymore. Okay, it can go this way, and it can go this way. Now, down here, this is the white ramus always conducts impulses into a sympathetic trunk ganglion. The gray ramus always conducts impulses out of a sympathetic trunk ganglion into the primary ventral ramus. So here I've used the term, okay, hoping I got it across from you, but I won't ask you that term. What if there was a preganglionic neuron in the thoracolumbar area? It's coming out, and there's no white ramus. There's no white ramus. well, then it can't get in. It can't get in. Fortunately, in the thoracolumbar region, there is always a white ramus, and it can get in. And it can either synapse here, or it can go all the way up to C1, or all the way back down to coccygeal vertebra 1. Okay, and it can synapse at any of these levels. If it synapses at a level, then the gray ramus will escort the postganglionic neuron out at a different level. Remembering that the preganglionic neuron is really a nerve and consists of many, many neurons. It can come to the sympathetic trunk ganglia. It can split inferiorly, and again and again and again, all the way down and all the way up. And it could reach all of the sympathetic trunk ganglia, all 31 on one side. And then it could synapse with the post-sympathetic ganglia and send out a massive command to the entire body. In the parasympathetic pathways, this is a little bit different. The parasympathetic pathway is called the craniosacral because its nerves originate from the brain, or they originate from the sacrum. Okay, this color here is to represent the parasympathetic preganglionic neuron. Here's the vertebra without the bone. The swelling tells you this is the dorsal root ganglion. In what part of the body are we here? We're in the brain now. This isn't the brain. We're in the sacral region. This is part of the parasympathetic system, and it's part of the sacral region, and it's going to be different. Here, the preganglionic neuron originates in the lateral intermediate mass. Same, absolutely the same. Comes out through the ventral root, crosses over the gray ramus, because nothing goes into the gray ramus, nothing at all, only comes out. And it goes on, and it looks for a white ramus. I'm assuming it has some personality. It's looking for the white ramus to get into here, but there isn't one. There's no white ramus. So the impulse or motor command that this parasympathetic preganglionic neuron is sending out cannot reach here. And if it can't reach here, it can't reach the one above it, the one above it, the one above it, all the way up to the head. It cannot get into this. It's almost like a bunch of elevators. You get to certain floors. You can get out at any floor because there's a gray ramus all the time, but you can't get in at any all of the floors. The only floors you can get in are the ones that have a white ramus, and those are the thoraco 12 pairs and the lumbar 5 pairs. Thoracolumbar are the only ones with white ramus. So they're the only ones that can initiate the massive response. So this preganglionic neuron continues on until it finds another nerve, another way out. And it's called a splanchnic nerve. Splanchnic nerve, that's our substitute for a white ramus, but it doesn't go to this structure here. Instead, it goes a long distance until it reaches the body of the organ it's going to innervate. The synapse for the preganglionic parasympathetic neuron could be right out here. And that first synapse is again acetylcholine. The first synapse is always acetylcholine, either system. But when you get to the stomach or other organ, you'll get right up next to it, and the synapse there, called a motor unit, that second synapse is going to be having acetylcholine also as its neurotransmitter. Okay. There are two neurons in either system. In the sympathetic system, the two neurons each end in a synapse. In the sympathetic system, the first one is crossed by acetylcholine. The second is crossed by noradrenaline or adrenaline. In the parasympathetic system, both crossings, both synapses are going to be crossed by acetylcholine. There is no connection here in the sympathetic system with the sympathetic trunk gangula. There's no connection to the parasympathetic system. The only thing is that information can go out. Okay, and this is parasympathetic. I'm sorry, this would be sympathetic information in here. It can go out and exit to the body. That way it can exit at all levels. The cranial sacral can only exit from the cranial nerves and the 5 regions of the sacrum itself. That's it. Okay, now, I know I've talked a little longer, probably a lot longer than normal, but here's the deal. You've seen that material coming in as well. That is not practical exam material, but it will be on the last lecture exam, and will, of course, with everything else, be on the final exam. My proposal to you was to move the practicum number 3 from the 12th to the 17th. Okay, I'm going to do that. But if you feel that that's not to your advantage, email me and I'll set you up somehow for the 12th. Okay. I want to get started on the lab. I don't want to. We don't have time to shortchange anything, so I can go a little faster though. So I'm going to give you a break. It's 31 for 10 minutes. Okay. 41 after.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Good.